context of Black studies, knowing that Black studies is a different approach to intellectual development and recognizes that the study that we do in the classroom has to be connected to the liberation of our people. So we
Mm,
developed a motto that we are the intellectual arm of the revolution, the intellectual
mm.
arm of the revolution. And so I served as chair from 2010 to 2019 and then stepped down. During that time, we were able to initiate a master's program, the only Black Studies master's program in the state of California. We were also able to kind of build off of the movement moments that we had and win the second College of Ethnic Studies in the entire nation. So now Cal State LA has an entire College of Ethnic Studies. But also, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we were able to really recapture what Black Studies is intended to be, which is, again, the intellectual arm of the revolution. So we should always be connected to the empowerment of Black people. That should be the primary point of our work. So we're reading books, we're engaging in theory. And if that theory is not employed, if that theory doesn't go to change the lives and the way in which Black people function in the world, then it's all for naught, right? We don't want to be a part of an institution that's really built on our backs. We want to use the resources that we have while we're there in order to build ourselves up as Black people. And so it's our Department of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA that helped to birth the largest racial justice movement in global history, which is Black Lives Matter, which I'm a founding member of, as are many of my former students. And so that's also one of the legacies of the department and something I feel very fortunate to have been a part of and to be a part of. I'm co-founder and I still lead Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is the on the ground work of Black Lives Matter, 39 chapters all around the country.
Well, let's start with that then. I'd be curious to know, obviously, I'm sure you followed all the controversy about the money, like all the money that was given, and nobody seems to really understand exactly what it was used for. Tell us about that. And just, because a lot of people were mixed. If you say, well, do Black Lives Matter? We all agree with that. I'm sure everybody in the chat would say yes. But then when you sort of saw what was going on, and then the division within the organization, it left a lot of people really confused and to some extent maybe disgruntled. Can you give your perspective on sort of what happened there?
Sure. So I'll give that, but I want to first say that, again, I'm part of Black Lives Matter Grassroots.
Mm,
And we say Black Lives Matter Grassroots is Black Lives Matter. When you think
mm,
of Black Lives Matter in its purest sense, when I think of the Black Lives Matter that my mother, who's a retired elementary school teacher, gives to, right? What was she seeding? She was seeding the work that we do on the ground. She was seeding the work that exposed the goon squad in Mississippi that got the cops that killed, father of three, Ryan Twyman, prosecuted. She was seeding the work that helps us to push to end qualified immunity. And his boots on the ground is outside of the Democratic National Convention, still yelling for reparations and police accountability and saying that people shouldn't be killed in jails and prisons all around the country, still demanding the freedom for people like Brittany Martin, who's inside an Illinois prison as other Black people are dressed up in their fancy gear going into convention centers. That's the Black Lives Matter I'm a part of. And so we want to encourage everybody to follow BLM Grassroots and really see for themselves the incredible work that is still being done all around the country that you don't hear about because our platforms and resources were hijacked back in 2021 by a group of thieves. So essentially what happened is July 13th, 2013 was the day that George Zimmerman, white supremacist or wannabe white supremacist, he's actually Peruvian, right? White supremacist stalked and murdered our collective son, Trayvon Martin. And he was acquitted in that murder on July 13th, 2013. I'm a mom and an educator. I have 3 children. Um, Barack Obama famously said that if he had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Martin. Well, I actually have a son, and he was 3 years old at the time, and he actually looks like Trayvon Martin, right?
Mm, wow.
Same shiny brown skin, dancing eyes with a little bit of mischief, right? Um, and when we witnessed not just what happened to Trayvon, but how the state doubled down on the side of violent white supremacy to not only let Zimmerman off, but I remember when I got the call from my brother, because I'd stepped away from the television as we were waiting for the verdict to come in. I don't know if you remember, but it had
Mhm.
become nighttime. And so all of the commentators were saying, oh, well, the verdict's not going to come till Monday. And so I went and did what mamas do, right? We had to go run my weekend errands. And I rounded up my kids and went to run my weekend errands. And then my brother called me and he said, well, where are you at? And I told him, and he said, well, sit down because you're not going to like it. And he said he got off and they're giving him his gun back.
Mm,
And I don't know
wow.
why that second part hit me so hard, but it did. And so I was buying a used car because my family had grown. I needed an additional seat. And I was at CarMax and I rounded my kids up, didn't buy a car that day, and came back to the house. And later I read the story of Joanne Robinson when she got word of the arrest of Rosa Parks. And not that I'm any Joanne Robinson, but her story resonated with me that she was shopping in the Piggly Wiggly when she got word of Rosa Parks' arrest. And I can imagine the same kind of fog because I felt that fog. And I round my kids up and bring them home. Still got to cook dinner for them. You know, my youngest is 3, still got to bathe them, still got to put them to bed, still got to, read them stories. And then after they're in bed, I call 3 other Black mamas that I know. And if I turned this camera around, I'd show you my big beat up orange couch in this living room. And we sat on the orange couch and we were like, well, what we gonna do? And in Los Angeles, there's one place Black people go whenever something goes down, whether it's joyful or, enraging. And so we went to an area that we call Africa Town. Some people call it Lamert Park. And
Mhm.
there were hundreds of people in the park. And we joined the people in the park and, basically engaged in 3 days of marching and protest. And on the third day of protest, I'd been in community with a sister named Patrice Cullors. We've been doing work around sheriff's violence. She was leading work around sheriff's violence. And I get a text that originated with her that asked us to meet at 9 p.m. in this Black artist community that she was living at. And I, by then, was in the streets, not just with the group that we called ourselves a Mama Brigade, right? So we were out there with our kids in strollers, right? Like shutting down really spaces of white affluence. And I was there with them, but I was also there with who I call my spirit children, which is the students in Black studies and Pan-African studies, and, hundreds and thousands of other people. And this was the first kind of intentional gathering. So we go to this Black artist community called St. Elmo Village, and we pledge to build a movement, not a moment, because many of us had been involved in struggles for justice for Oscar Grant and Devin Brown and this Black homeless woman named Margaret Mitchell, and had been doing this for years. And it was just kind of this hamster wheel, right? Where we go, we'd rise up, and then eventually we'd go home. And
Mm,
there was a recognition that there had to be systemic transformation. And so that's what the birth of Black Lives Matter was. We ran, it was regular mamas like me. It was babas like there's an elder organizer who we call the baddest organizer on the planet, Baba Akili. There were, young lions, 14, 15-year-old kids. There were my own kids who were 3, 6, and 9 at the time. And we were the birth of Black Lives Matter. We had no money. We would rotate who can pick up, $10 pizzas from Costco or 99-cent burritos from El Pollo Loco for the meeting. And that's what it was for years. We had no money. In 2015, we got our first little glimpse of money when Jay-Z and Beyonce gave us $250,000. And by then, you're a professor of, you study this stuff. $250,000 does not go very far when you're talking about 40 chapters, right? But we thought, wow, now we can hire somebody, right? And so we hired an administrator and, but we didn't have any money until 2020, real money until 2020. And in 2020, when everybody was home and we had to watch not only the theft of George Floyd's life, but Ahmaud Arbery's life, Breonna Taylor's life here in Los Angeles, people like Dejan Kizee, people said, what can we do? And they became very generous and money just poured in. And it enabled us to really do some really brilliant and beautiful work. And we had worked out a system where Patrisse Cullors, who was the last remaining of the co-founders, so to be clear, I was at the first meeting of Black Lives Matter. I dedicated myself to building the boots on the ground. I was at the meeting, but I didn't call the meeting. So I'm not a co-founder. It was Patrisse Cullors, Alicia Garza, who she'd been in communication with from Oakland, and then Opal Tometi, who was in New York. So the three of them are considered the co-founders, but I am an original member and built out kind of the boots on the ground of Black Lives Matter. By then, Alicia and Opal had stepped back. Patrisse, who I was very close with at the time, agreed to run all the administrative type stuff. And I would continue to just work with chapters and build boots on the ground. And we'd formed Black Lives Matter Grassroots by then to be the boots on the ground work. Unfortunately, also with the money came hits, right? So white supremacists, but also I believe people who were funded by interests that were not our interests, right? Began to hit us. Now, I'm born in 1972. This ain't my first time getting threatened, right? I'm from East Oakland. People have talked crazy to me in the past. I always talk about, kind of fights, but I talk about political fights. Those are not my first fights, people, right? And so when I get hit, it's a little bit different because I have a little bit of a thick skin and a hood sensibility. I'm from, Funktown, East Oakland, and I still throw up from my hood, funk or die, right? And so when they talk stuff to me on Twitter, that's not the worst I ever experienced, right? So I hit back. Patrisse, who also grew up in a very working class environment, but is a different generation. She's a millennial. It hit her differently. And she talks about it. So I feel she told me I can talk about it. She had some serious, serious mental health issues that caused her to step back. And what the plan was for all the resources that have poured into her side of things, which was the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, to transition over to the boots on the ground and really fuel and fund the boots on the ground side of things, which was Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is the work that I was doing. Unfortunately, she put someone in place who was a highly paid consultant who does not come from the movement, who, long story short, stole all of the money. His name, and I believe in naming names, his name is Shalomia Bowers. And he had all legal control over the Global Network Foundation, and he stole upwards, the estimate is upwards of $100 million. We also had built, just as important as the money is the following. We had built an Instagram following of 5 million people. I was at the time in charge of the Instagram, doing the majority of the posting and, encouraging people to get involved, um, to do people's budget work, to say defund the police, and this is what this means, invest in, community housing and that kind of thing. I was doing a lot of that work. I was shut out of that. So he stole our resources, our platforms, and I also say our good name. So when people say Black Lives Matter, in 2021, it was the most trusted name among Black people of any name behind Barack Obama. Most trusted name. And now that's not the case. It doesn't come without controversy. And so the question then became, and I'm sorry for making this such a long story, the question became, what do we do? And, those of us who are boots on the ground, those of us who are in the work for righteous reasons, those of us who believe in Black liberation also know this is still a really viable and important and powerful movement. And I live by the mantra, just do the work and live as righteously as possible. And so we continue to build Black Lives Matter grassroots. We did work to get our resources back in 2022 when Bowers made it clear that he was not going to hand over our resources. He actually called me on the phone and he said, I intend to keep Black Lives Matter indefinitely and build a board of people I trust. So that now there's 3 board members. There's Bowers, there's a woman named Cecily Gay, who we have photos of her. She was also a highly paid consultant, unskilled, never been a part of the movement. She has a t-shirt that says, I'm billing you for this conversation. And she talks about swimming in Versace pools and Black affluence, right? Black opulence is what she says, right? She's bought a McMansion in Alpharetta, Georgia, off of Black Lives Matter funds. And then the third person, and this is really the most hurtful, is I had a student named Dejanay Parker who I had assigned to do some work with Black Lives Matter. She was always a rank and file member. She, unbeknownst to me, was Bauer's best friend in high school. And so she is the third member of their board. We don't know what they do. We know that for our 11th anniversary, which just passed about a month ago, they rebranded, they erased any history of the original formation of Black Lives Matter. So all of those old Instagram posts where we were actually doing work were deleted, and they're now talking about branding, and this is what we're doing. And so that's what happened. We did get, fortunately, before Patrice stepped back, we got a small amount of money for Black Lives Matter grassroots, which we've used for the last 4 years to provide some support for the work that we do on the ground for the 39 chapters that we now have. Including our prison chapters. It's Black August. So I want to be clear, we have 3 Black Lives Matter prison chapters, all in California. And so we did get some money, but we've wound up filing a lawsuit in 2022 after we tried to persuade through other means, persuade Bowers to just do the right thing and let it go and turn it back over to the people who built it. Unfortunately, $100 million, in my view, is all the money in the world, right? So they were able to hire really high-powered attorneys, including one of Hillary Clinton's attorneys, and they blocked us from even having a day in court. So they used something called an anti-SLAPP motion to block us from even having a day in court, and we weren't able to sue them. And people who understand the legal system know how that works, that, the court system is set up for the rich and powerful and usually white folks, right? But if you have the resources of white folks, you can use it to your advantage, we know that Bowers, the first year in 2020, paid himself $2.2 million. And so they're paying themselves in the millions. So of course, they're not gonna give that up, but we're gonna continue to do the work, and we're gonna continue to struggle for Black freedom and Black power. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
And some of that includes economic empowerment. So one of the ways that we've done work, people know that we respond to police violence, and I'll be quiet after this, but I want your folks to actually know that one of our biggest efforts at the end of every year, but we do it all year long, it's just intense, from Black Friday to January 1st, is a period that we call Black Xmas, where we build Black, meaning support Black-led radical organizations. Buy Black mean divest from white capitalism and invest in Black-owned businesses that benefit our community. And then bank Black, move our money out of banks like Bank of America that, fund our oppression, and put them in Black-owned banks like One United, and other Black-owned banks around the country. And so, we do that kind of work, and we're continuing to do that kind of work, largely in partnership with many of the families of those who've been stolen by police violence. So Black Xmas was done in honor of John Crawford, who was murdered inside of a Walmart store in Beaverton, Ohio, while he was holding store merchandise. He was a young Black father, and Walmart called police in on him, and he was killed in the aisles of that store. And so that's why we initiated Black Xmas, but we know we can't support it's white supremacist capitalism that uses police violence to kill our people.
Wow. Wow. Everybody that just came in, I'm speaking with Dr. Melina Abdullah. And now I hope you can see why I found her to be a really interesting person to bring into the space, because she's got a lot to say and a lot that all of us need to hear. And so the other thing about Dr. Abdullah that I did not get to mention is, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is she happens to be the running mate for Dr. Cornel West, who's running for president. And you all know how much I love Dr. West. And so when I did hear from you, Dr. Abdullah, I just have I have these stupid rules in life, like any friend of Cornel West is a friend of mine, period. It doesn't
That's a
matter.
great rule. Yes.
Yeah. I just love the guy. I think he's an amazing human being, and so that's how you and I became friends and got a chance to talk and everything else. And so I want to ask you about this. Last night I was sitting with my family. We're watching the DNC stuff going on in Chicago. And earlier that day, I talked to an activist named in Chicago named Jamal Green, who has really been active. He actually ran for mayor of Chicago at the age of 27, and he actually had some really weird, awkward interactions with Roland Martin, who I guess just was calling him stupid and an idiot because
Right.
because he's not in alignment with all the Democratic Party agendas. I want to get from your perspective as a person who's sort of in the interior of politics. Two things that come to mind. One, I'd like to know what that's been like for you to jump into politics, which you're braver than me. I think it's messy, it's ugly, I hate it. It just drives me insane. I have a rule, honestly, where I don't like to talk to politicians. I don't, you're an exception because I respect you, but RFK, those people reached out. I'm like, whatever. I used to talk to the Obama people. We had two conversations, and after the second one is like, don't call me anymore because I see what you're doing. And so give me your thoughts on your experience running for VP, what that's been like, and then also what you saw with the DNC. I know a lot of people in here have opinions about it. Lil Jon, yeah, all this other goofiness that they do. I'd like to get your thoughts on just any of that, anything that comes to mind, please.
Yeah. So I'm not a politician. In fact, I've said I will never, ever, ever, ever run for office. Never. And then I would give myself an out, maybe school board, because I'm an educator, right? I'm an educator and I'm a public school parent.
Mm, okay.
Um, but I never wanted to be in office. I said never, never. And then, like your rule, who says no to Dr. West, right? So um, July of 2023 was our 10-year anniversary. And we did this big People's Justice Festival in Lamert Park where we were birthed. And Tavis Smiley, who's a good friend of Cornel West, was one of our co-hosts for the event, and also is where we have our Black Lives Matter Saturday radio show on his radio station, KBLA. And he was able to get Cornel West to come speak. Cornel West to come speak for our 10-year anniversary, right? Which was phenomenal. And so Cornel West comes, and I didn't know he was running for president of the United States up until Tavis goes, well, Dr. West will come. And he's running. At that time, I think he had just come off of the Green Party, right? But was running as an independent. And I was like, I'll sit and listen to Dr. West, and you can sit and listen to Dr. West for hours, right? And so I was so enthusiastic about him coming. And then from there, I was able to, and it wasn't my first time meeting him. He'd come and been a part of different things that we'd done on campus. And, I'd seen him in the streets in Ferguson. And he was always, like you said, he's a good person, right? People know he's the smartest man in the world, right? If you read him or, he's he's the smartest living person, right? And we know that. And that matters, but it doesn't matter to me as much as what kind of human being are you? And he's just such a beautiful soul. And so, brilliance and kindness and connection is hugely important. So when he was running, when he would come do events in Los Angeles, I started getting invited to the events, and then being invited to introduce him, or my children are also activists. In fact, my oldest child is a better known youth organizer than I am. Like they were one of like top teen activists in the world. West-Abdullah is their name, right? And so he would have Tandiwe, or have my middle child, Amara, who also was very instrumental in doing a lot of work around Black youth in schools, come be in conversation with him. And so I was an enthusiastic supporter of Dr. West, and that's what I expected to be. And in March, I had him on my show on, KBLA, and did an interview, which is not, I'm like you, I like to just have conversations. And if you're with Dr. West, you don't really have to say that much to get brilliance to just bubble out of him. And I had this great conversation with him. And a couple days later, I get a call from him and his wife. And I thought they were calling to debrief the interview. But instead, he invited me to be his running mate, which, my heart started dancing, and I wanted to say yes. And then I'm also, like I said, a mama, a single mama, 3 kids. I can't say yes if my kids don't say yes. I'm also my parents' children. My mama and my baba got to be on. And so I checked around, and everybody, including my organizing family, was an enthusiastic yes. And the pledge that I made is that we will run in a way that uplifts the work of Black people. We'll always put what's right over what's pragmatic. And that's what we've attempted to do. So we've been offered PAC money. We've been offered all kinds of buy-offs. I've been personally offered things to drop out, major things, I won't say, to drop out. So is Dr. West. But we believe that this is a once in a lifetime platform to be able to talk about reparations that are real reparations that come with a check, not just with, in Los Angeles County, reparations looks like free parking on Juneteenth at county parks and beaches, right? That's I'll take the free parking, but that's not reparations, right?
Mm,
And so we want to talk about what reparations looks like. We want to talk about police accountability and why, police accountability doesn't mean more training, as Kamala Harris keeps talking about. Police accountability really does mean moving resources away from police and investing them in a livable wage that's at least $27 an hour nationally for our people, right? And so that's why I said yes. We're running also to, and I'll let this be the last point. I'm sorry, I'm being a horrible conversation partner because I'm not pausing. Um,
no, that's okay. I don't, and I'm not good at interrupting anyway. So I don't worry. If you pause, it would just be an awkward pause. Keep going.
okay, good. I'll say this that my PhD is actually in political science. So I've studied, my dissertation was on Black women who run for office, Black women members of Congress, specifically in womanist leadership.
Hmm.
And I've studied this and thought I knew what I was talking about until we hopped into this campaign and I began to understand how deep the corporate owned duopoly is.
Mm,
That both the Democrats and Republicans pour tens of millions of dollars every election cycle, not to run their campaigns, but to lock any third party out of the campaign. So,
mm,
for instance, we just overcame ballot challenge in North Carolina. We qualified to be on the ballot. There's all of these hoops you have to jump through to even have your name appear on the ballot, which is crazy to me. Shouldn't you be able to vote for whoever you want to vote for, right? But
mm,
you have to, do all of these things to qualify. In in California, you have to get 73,000 people to change their political party to a new political party that's not even a political party yet in order to be on the ballot, right? 73,000 people, right? That's an overwhelming hurdle. And this is not just a petition signature, right? We have data that it costs about $10 to get people to sign a petition for every signature. So if it were a petition signature, you would estimate that cost as being almost $1 million for valid signatures, right? But this is actually changes in parties. So this would, if you were to talk about what it would cost to do that, you're talking many millions of dollars. It's a near impossibility, right?
mm,
But in addition to that impossibility, where we're now on the ballot in at least 10 states, and we have 7 other states where we've qualified, we're being challenged by the Democratic Party
mm,
saying, we don't care that you qualified, you shouldn't be on the ballot because of this technicality or that technicality. So I didn't anticipate that part of it. I thought we were going to be able to go around the country and talk about why we needed $27 an hour minimum wage, why we need healthcare justice, not just Medicare for all. That's part of it, but we need more than that. But instead, we're not. My son's walking out. Bye, son. Um, um, you know, we're not able to even do that. I also wasn't prepared for what kind of money it takes to actually engage in a run, right? That, everybody else is flying around the country on the millions of dollars in PAC and corporate donations. We don't take PAC and corporate donations. We got educators giving $10 a month, and my Baba gave the largest political donation, who's my Baba's also a retired elementary school teacher, right? And Vietnam vet and all of these things. He gave the largest political donation, which is, substantial for him, but not for most people. That this is what we're running on, and we have to use that money to hire lawyers to defend against the challenges. So in order to fly, we're using our frequent flyer miles, right?
wow. Wow.
And so these are the things I wasn't anticipating, but I also wasn't anticipating the beauty of the movement that, all over the country. There are people who are invested, who are just hopping in it, who are, being keyboard warriors and sitting on street corners. We got this brother here in LA named Billion who goes, well, you need 73,000 people to change your party. We got 70,000 unhoused, mostly Black people in LA County alone. Let's register them to vote, right? And
Mm.
set up shop outside of housing shelters, right? And it's just really beautiful. And we've said, as long as it's legal and righteous, do it, because this is a people powered campaign. And so that's been one of the most beautiful things, in addition to getting to be with Dr. Cornel West, on most days, right? I get to speak with him on most days, and that's been a tremendous honor and blessing.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, um, I mean, what has shocked me, Dr. Abdullah, is just the depth of the corruption that exists, within the given political system. When you're talking about, I heard an interview. Actually, this week I was supposed to go to Atlanta to be on a panel with RFK or something, and I guess Revolt was hosting. And I told you I don't like to talk to politicians, but I did it as a favor to Angela Stanton King, who does some good work that I respect. I have friends on all sides of the spectrum. I just want to believe that you're serious about what you're doing, and it got canceled abruptly. And I said, well, what happened? I said, oh, I said, I bet you that they're dropping out of the race and whatever. And she said, yeah, and there's more. She sends me this video, and apparently RFK's VP was really, really laying out some heavy allegations about just some of the really underhanded stuff that the Democratic Party had done to really undermine their campaign, to the point of planting people inside their camp just to cause chaos, just to disrupt things. And I remember just sort of, it just reminded me that when you get into the reality of politics, you're right. You talk about the theory, us professors, we live in this nice, cute theoretical world, the way things are supposed to be. And then you get into this ugly reality where human beings can be nasty, petty, ruthless. I even when I got that crazy phone call from DL Hughley where he's threatening physical violence, like
Mm.
I was like, wait, is this old man really threatening to beat me up and kill me or something? Like, what's
Wow.
happening here? I couldn't believe it. It was the most shocking phone call I ever had in my life. And I don't know if DL thought I wasn't going to tell anybody, but yeah, I am. It's like, it was weird. It was very weird. And because I was like, first of all, I could beat you up if I wanted to, but I'm a grown man and I don't, that didn't make any sense. But it was just kind of weird. It made me wonder, like, it lets me know for sure the fix is in, but I don't know how deep the fix goes, right? Like, I wonder, particularly, let's talk about the Black community. When you look at just some of the behavior of some of the leading Black people, or I call them Negro managers, right? They're not Black leaders. They pretend to
Mm.
be Black leaders, but they're really here to manage us, herd us like sheep, get us to line up and do what we're told at the polls. And again, I want everybody to know I don't care who you vote for. I'm not judging that. I don't tell you what to do. I want to make that clear. But there's this weird game in place. Um, Tell me more about what you saw there in terms of just the reality of how American politics operates. I personally think that two things are going to destroy America. One is the broken, corrupt political system, and then two is the religion of capitalism. I think that worshiping the dollar and allowing capitalism to poison the political bloodstream of America, where you have cases like Citizens United and all that stuff, and these campaign finance laws that really need to be changed. It almost seems to me that letting that capitalism into the bloodstream of your American politics is what's going to destroy this country. There's absolutely no way I can imagine our country being strong for another 100 years operating in this particular way. Can you kind of give me your perspective on this in terms of what you've seen in your experience?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think all of us have seen it. I've seen it up close recently, right, with this run. But I think if we step back and collectively just look, last week I was in Ferguson for the 10-year anniversary of Mike Brown's murder, but also the Ferguson uprisings. And, I've grown very close with Mike Brown Sr. over the years. And um, the the memorial at Ground Zero where Mike's body um, was left in the streets for all of those hours became the space where families spoke out, but also the genuine organizers were there to speak. And one of those people was Congresswoman Cori Bush.
Mm,
And I'm lifting it up because I think what we've all just witnessed with Cori Bush, we always say that there are some elected officials who actually genuinely represent the people. We always say that. So in Los Angeles, we talk about people like Maxine Waters, right? Well, Cori Bush goes further than that because she doesn't simply represent the people, she is the people. She's
mm,
the people. She was out as a protester, in 2014. Cori Bush has been a single Black mama living in her car, right? Cori Bush is still has the same braider, right? If you look, it's not some high-end shop. It's the fly sister who comes to your house or you sit up in her living room watching Tyler Perry movies, right? Who does Corey hair, right? Cori Bush is, when I say just do the work and be righteous, is one of those people. And I love her. I love her from one of the deepest places in me. I love her because she loves us so much. And I don't know if everybody saw what just happened with her district in St. Louis, but
mm,
APAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, spent tens of millions of dollars to hire one of these skin folk who ain't kinfolk, to
mm,
hire this so-called Black man that his legal name is Wesley Bell, but in Ferguson, they call him Wesley Sell Out,
mm.
right? Wesley Sell, right?
Well,
To primary her and to unseat Cori Bush because she is who we have. They did the same thing in New York to Jamal Bowman. And so what we're seeing, and so what we're collectively seeing is that corporate interests, and APAC is part of it. They're spending tens of millions, and I know it's not popular among Black people to be critical at all of Kamala Harris, but I'm sorry, I'm not in it for a popularity contest, right? We got to remember she took $5.5 million from APAC herself, right?
mm,
There's a reason that even in the DNC last night that they kept showing the Israeli flag when her husband spoke. They showed him standing in front of the Israeli flag for some of that video stuff, right? This is not, I'm gonna be clear, we are not anti-Semitic, but I am anti-Zionist. I'm anti-Zionist. And it shouldn't be that Zionist interests, which are aligned with corporate interests, get to buy our government, but they do, right? And that's what's been happening. They've bought our government, and it's not just the Zionists, it's the white supremacist capitalists. There's a reason why the former CEO of American Express spoke last night. It was a signal to corporations that both the DNC and the RNC are for sale to corporations. And that's what I'm seeing, is that the depth of corporate ownership of the government is beyond anything we can imagine. And I agree with you, Dr. Watkins, it will be the death of this country. And who are they going to kill first? Who they always kill first is Black people. So
mm,
Black people have to be staunchly opposed to, but also awakened by what's happening and have a plan in place. We can't allow ourselves to be frightened by their Project 2025, which has been in the making for decades. It's not new, y'all, right? We have to instead remember that we have to have our own vision. We have to have a vision 2024. That's what we've tried to do, Dr. West and I, with our policy pillars. And I did drop our website in the chat. It's an opportunity for us to say, what gets us free. And Dr. West will say, starting on the chocolate side of town, I'll say, when Black people get free, everybody else gets free, but we got to start with Black people getting free.
Yes, I love that. You know, it's funny, Dr. Abdullah, whenever people try to scare me with Project 2025, I say, well, well, Project 2025, maybe it will pass, maybe it won't. There's a lot of hurdles as to jump. But the project that was very successful was Project 1994, called the Biden Crime Bill. So that was a glaring success in terms of the numbers of Black people they incarcerated, the numbers of Black families they destroyed. And then I say, well, what about Project 1985? Oh, that was when they put the crack
Right.
cocaine in the Black community. What about Project 1965? Well, that was when Secretary McNamara decided he wanted to send 100,000 Black men into infantry in the Vietnam War, where they lied to them. They told them, we're going to give you great jobs and opportunities and you'll come back this upstanding citizen. But really, they were going to put them in infantry. And I think about my father who's dying right now from the effects of the Vietnam War. And I think about his heroin addiction that came from his experience in the Vietnam War, his
Mm.
brother's addictions, all the men and the families that were destroyed because of this, right? So my point is to say that, it's kind of crazy to me how fear is used so regularly to get us. Now, we don't really vote for anybody. We vote against something else, right? It's like, so you have Taraji P. Henson on BET. Look up Project 2025, y'all. Y'all got to go do it. And then Kamala's like, they not like us. They not, whatever, right? Just all these stupid things that they do. And we just sort of run like sheep. And I'm not saying people can't vote for who they want. Do what you want. Just don't tell me what to do. And then also tell me what you support. Like, stop living
That's
in this fear, like it's gonna get worse if you don't do what we say. It's already kind of bad. Like if you look at the Black community,
right.
we're already last when it comes to wealth. Our families have been broken to shit. Our communities, in Chicago, I think 20 or 30 people got shot and killed during the DNC, right down the block from the DNC, right? How much were half the damn kids? Most of the kids, like, I think there were like, I want to say 50 or 60 schools in the city of Chicago where the DNC is being held, run by Democrats, by the way, where they said they could not find one single child in the entire school who could read or do math at grade level. Not one. so so it's
Wow.
kind of like, it's like, well, what are you defending? Like, you almost sound like conservatives in the sense that, like, you're trying to conserve, like okay, we're gonna vote against this because we don't want these bad things to happen because we want to protect the status quo. I don't want to protect the status quo. I want to blow that up. That's the revolutionary. That's my definition of revolution. It's like, let's blow the shit up, start over from scratch. Let's pick the right ideas and really defend our people and stop being a bunch of damn cowards. They got us running scared like little chickens, and it's irritating. It doesn't vibe with me very well. Now I want to let me go ahead. I'm gonna pass the ball back to you because when I get in here, I get
No, no, keep going. Right.
yeah, okay. So all right. So I see some people are bringing up. All right. So I want to let y'all know. See, this is my family here. So we going to have a family talk. Some of y'all keep bringing up Dr. West and the fact that he did marry at least one white woman. I don't know the whole history of Dr. West's marriages and all that. I'm going to say this. And now if you want to comment on it, Dr. Abdul, you can, but I'd like to make just my remark on this. I've told y'all a million times that I have my preference. When I got married, I told you I wasn't gonna marry nothing but a Black woman. That was what I was committed to. That's my belief. I have people in my family who made a different choice, and Dr. West made a different choice. Now remember, and Kamala made a different, right? Whatever, right? But the thing is, number one, I don't judge people based on who they choose to love, who they choose to marry. But then, second of all, there's a difference. I think sometimes because I'm pro-black, people think that that means that you have to hate white people to be pro-black. And I don't believe that. No, it's like I don't have anything against anybody. I think love is stronger than hate. It's the oppression that I don't appreciate, right? So, for example, one of my girls married a very nice melanin deficient man from Denmark. And here's the thing. He came into our family with complete respect. He loves her into the ground. He takes care of his kids. He's a great guy. He came in, he respected me as her father, and it's fine. It's great. It's like, so this idea, and that's what's interesting. I want to get your take on this. Sometimes when people see that you're passionate about something, they become afraid of you. Like, I have so many people that are scared of me. I don't think I'm a mean guy. I'm a nice guy. just don't try to oppress me. Don't come with that white
Mm,
supremacy nonsense. Don't come in with disrespect, and we can be friends. And I think that that's where people sometimes get it wrong. Like I've been invited into stuff like, for example, because I was on the faculty of Syracuse, I might get invited to speak to a group of bankers. And I'll bring up something like reparations. And then I remember one particular speech, like 5 or 10 people just got up and walked out of the room, right? And I brought it up as politely as I could. And I find that just being black and intelligent or believing in something or not being afraid scares the hell out of people, even when you're not actively attacking anyone. What's that been like for you? Because I can tell, first of all, you mentioned you're from Oakland, which means you ain't scared of nothing. You're smart as hell. You're passionate about what you believe in. I think you've actually shed tears twice during this conversation, which tells me how deep your passion goes. How does that feel that the world sees you as a dangerous person when I actually believe the world should see you as a hero?
thank you for that. Um, when you said we got to blow this shit up, I'm an abolitionist. I believe that. I know that, and I'm working towards that, right? I believe in the complete overturning of systems of oppression. I don't believe I know policing in this country is completely irredeemable. And I think it's crazy when people say, no, we just need to invest more money in training, right? Police came from slave catching. What are you
Mm,
talking about? It would be ridiculous for us to say, let's just reform slavery, right? So I'm an abolitionist. I believe in the complete end of policing in this country as we know it, policing in the world as we know it. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in public safety, right? So as abolitionists, we believe in the end of systems. I believe in the end of predatory capitalism. That doesn't mean I believe in the end of resources for community. It means that I believe that all our communities should have all of what we need and most of what we want, right? And so I think that, look, I'm gonna just be straight. The system is right to be scared. The system is right to be scared of me. I might be, in my mind, I'm 5'9", but in reality, if you take a measuring tape, I'm 5'2 3/4", right?
fake news, fake news. Because I'm 6'4", but everyone tells me that's not true. They're all lying. But please go ahead.
Um, but I am here to blow it up. I'm here to blow it up. I'm here to, and I don't mean that, let me be clear, because my last name is
Right.
Abdullah. They take that differently. Um, I'm here to completely dismantle the things that have kept us oppressed as Black people, as Indigenous people, as poor people, as working class people. I'm here to end those systems. And so the system is right to be scared of me. And we would be naive to think that the system is going to reward us when we are here to overturn it. And so we have to find our power in each other. And so I feel very fortunate when I find, people of like minds, who are committed, who are willing to put it all on the line for the sake of our people. Dr. Watkins, it's a blessing to be in community with you and with everybody who's part of your family this morning, right? It's a blessing to be a part of Black Lives Matter grassroots. It's a blessing to be in community with Dr. West. I feel very blessed because that's how we will do things, right? And so, um, I might be 5'2 3/4", but I got hundreds and thousands of people walking with me who make us, we're undefeatable together. We are undefeatable. And the overturning of the system, and again, the other side of abolition is the birthing of something new that is inevitable and unstoppable as long as we don't stop and we continue to build.
When you talk about overturning systems, it's interesting because one of the things that I've concluded about systems in general, because I think a lot about the capitalist system, I think about things like the economic system, educational system, stuff like that, is I realized that sometimes it takes a lot of energy to go in a system and change a system. And I said, well, what if we also focus on creating alternative systems? Just evacuate the building, right? And that's a strategy that really worked well for me as a black man when I said, I'm gonna stop chasing all these things that white folks told me to chase. You know, we can educate ourselves. We can build economic systems amongst ourselves. So literally, in the Black Business School, where we train children on economics, they literally understand finances better than most college students, because it's very easy to have a high impact with very simple ideas. One of the things that we have is this model I created called Building Sturdy Children, STERDY. And STURDY stands for Systems, Technology, Entrepreneurship, Relationships, and Delegation amongst the youth. And to simply explain it, basically, I say, look, instead of teaching our kids how to get a job, let's teach them how to create a job. Let's help them understand what that means, what success means. So, for example, you and I are both scholars, and you know how academia works better than I do. You and my wife actually are much more accomplished within academia than I am. She's a full professor of social work. Me, I didn't even make tenure, right? Because I was I guess, such an asshole. They wanted to get rid of me, and I don't blame them. But anyway, it's like, when you think about systematic thinking, as professors, we could be sitting in our offices writing research papers that nobody ever reads, but instead, we're taking what we have and making it contagious. You're sharing your ideas with the world. Which I remember. I don't know how your departments were, but I remember, in at least definitely in academic finance, there's like this elitism where they sort of look down on the real world. It's like, well, why would you want to talk to the real world? Why would you want to engage the public? Like, you're not going to get tenure for that. You're not going to get a raise for that. At least
Right.
not in my field. But I was like, well, why wouldn't I want to talk to people? Why wouldn't I want my people to know what I know? Right? I know the secrets of finance and economics. I know the power of money and how it can work and all that. So I want everybody to know that, right? So I think systematic thinking means sort of, if I'm that so-called successful Black person, there are ways to think, to level up your economic consciousness. That's what we do every morning, by the way. That's what this class is called. It's called economic elevation, which is the art of financial consciousness. If you elevate your consciousness and you're thinking systematically, you're not just like you said earlier when you were talking about Black Lives Matter. You said, let's not just have a moment, let's create a movement. So let's not create just one successful person. Let's systematize that.
That's
How do we replicate that? The same way you can make Teslas on an assembly line, like you can manufacture the kinds of Black people that we need who are going to build the community that we want, right? So that word system, I think, is important, because if a lot of our children are trained to kind of think this way, it allows them to realize, like, you do have options. Like, for example, you get into the voting booth and they say you got to choose red or blue. A person with a certain level of consciousness would say, no, 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 you're not boxing me in. I'm not even going to play this game with you. I'm not
right.
picking the lesser of two evils, because I'm not trying to be evil today, right? I'm gonna create another option for myself, whether that's third party or maybe that means abstaining from voting. I think all options should be considered. And so, long story short, in my view, we spend a lot of energy either trying to fit into a corrupt system, and then sometimes we can end up in a tough situation where we're trying to change a system that's just fundamentally corrupt. And instead, I think creating new systems, because I think that's a solution, because the things you put energy into are the things that grow. When I took
Hmm.
time away, from chasing jobs and working for other people, and just said, I'm going to pour all my energy, all my knowledge, everything I have into building a family business, building an institution around my family, that led to outcomes that would not have occurred if I was simply trying to be whoever I am in my spare time. Do you see what I mean?
That's
Like,
right.
yeah. And so what I like is, and I think this is where, and I'd love to I'll let you get the last word, because I also want people to know where they can get in touch with you and they can follow you and support you, because they've been asking about this in the chat, how they can donate, how they can follow, how they can support. But overall, I think that's, to me, the way we can, if you talk about that word revolution, which I've meditated on that a little bit to really think about what that means for different people. But to me, part of it can mean sort of tearing down what's there. And then that can be conjoined with saying, okay, what do we build after we tear this thing down? Or let's say we can't tear it down. How do we build something else that, where our energy, our wealth, our resources, our talent is being applied to something that truly works to our benefit, and not to the benefit of the people who've been extracting things from us for the last several hundred years. Dr. Abdullah, I'll let you take over and you can get the last word, please.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we do have to invest in ourselves. And I think that we're not at a point yet where we can completely, what did you say, abandon the building, right?
Mm.
Well, many of us can't, right? So I think about it periodically, and I think, and maybe one day we can have a longer conversation on, Chokwe Lumumba. We just, celebrated his birthday recently, right? The
Mm,
whole plan, the Republic of New Africa plan and the Jackson Kush plan is a brilliant plan. And when I think about like what that would have meant to be able to build a Republic of New Africa, to be able to take Southern states and claim them for ourselves,
mm,
right? I think that the most Black people are not ready to do that yet, and we don't have the resources as a collective to do that yet. However, as we're building towards particular things, and some Black people will not want to come, right? Some Black
mm.
people are going to say, nah, I'd rather live around them than around us, right? Um, or I'm doing okay here, right? But I think that we have to um, engage in total abolition collectively, right? So we
Mm,
can't afford to completely abandon the building because my child, you saw him walk by, right, still is a ninth grader in their public schools. So I have to engage their systems. I have to say, how does this school become better? How do we remove police from schools and get more nurses and counselors there, right? At the same time, we have to think about, well, how do we build towards Black autonomy?
mm,
And what would it mean to have independent, Black schools that are accessible to our people? So I think that all of those things have to be worked on at the same time. And I think that what it reinforces is, again, the power of collective. Um, Maybe the last thing that I'll say is the organizing model that we have that I carry with me in everything, which is Mama Ella Baker's concept. And folks who know Ella Baker know that she was one of the most brilliant organizers in history, right? And so as the pastors and ministers of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference were kind of amassing power and individualizing themselves and catapulting themselves, um, Mama Ella Baker said the power comes from the collective. And she said, we must have group-centered leadership, not leader-centered groups. Group-centered leadership, not leader-centered groups. So what that means is, Dr. Watkins, you are brilliant with finance. I am not. I have some wisdom that comes from my mama and my grandma, which is, I don't know how to make money, but I sure know how to stretch money, right? Like I can, my thing is just don't spend nothing, right? Just don't spend nothing. Don't spend nothing. And, you know, at some point I'll talk with you about my own, what's worked for my mom, who was, for many years a single mother school teacher, and her mom before her, and what works for me as a single mom of 3 kids, right?
mm,
I would love to know how to make more, but I do know how to stretch it. But you're the person who knows how to deal with finance. I know how to engage in political education. By that, I mean, you know, engage in work where all of us can develop our intellectual tools and hone intellectual skills that can be used in particular ways. We got another brother. I don't know if you know Akinyele Umoja. Um, he's a professor at Georgia State, one of my favorite people on the planet. He wrote a book called We Will Shoot Back, right?
mm,
On the history of like the Deacons for Defense and Black self-defense, because we're fed
mm,
this idea that change came because people were purely nonviolent. Well, no, not all of them, right? And so we need to know about Robert F. Williams and what it means for Black people to keep ourselves safe. So we
mm,
can talk with him about that. Group-centered leadership is about everybody bring what you can to the movement and to the collective and use it for a collective empowerment. The
mm,
greatest lie that white supremacist capitalism has sold us is that we can somehow be successful as individuals.
mm,
Black people are not individuals. We will never be successful as individuals. We only rise and fall together. And our strength and power comes from moving together. And so I think recapturing what it means and affirming what it means to be a collective, understand linked fate, and move and rise and fall together, invest in each other is what will lead to our empowerment. And so, again, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you as well. And everybody, give a digital thank you to Dr. Melina Abdullah for blessing us with her time. Let her know how much we appreciate her. And also, Dr. Abdullah, I've seen people ask basically how they can support, how they can even know who to give money to if they wanted to give money to Black Lives Matter grassroots, or they wanted to also follow you, things like that. Can you give some information on that?
Sure. So I'm at Doc Melly Mel on all social media, DOCMELLYMEL. And then Black Lives Matter Grassroots is BLM Grassroots on all social media and blmgrassroots.org. There is a donate button there. So if you want to help us out, we would love that. And then the campaign is at cornellwest2024.com. That's CORNEL, just one L, cornellwest2024.com. And that's how you get involved with and donate to the campaign.
Okay,
Um,
so how did you become Doc Melly Mel? Is that from, did you used to be a rapper or a break dancer or both? Which one did you do? Come on. We
I'm
got to go
hip
back to the
hop
80s.
generation, definitely influenced by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Grandmaster Melly Mel. So I'm Doc Melly Mel. Yes, definitely hip
I
hop
love
generation.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to have a breakdancing group with my friend. He was a white.
Wow.
Yeah. He was white. So we I think we had the coolest name. We called ourselves the Salt and Pepper Shakers. Tell me that's not cool. Tell me
Look,
that's not cool. So
you gonna have me go into it. Why did I just see some actual salt and pepper shakers with salt and pepper on them online yesterday? I just saw those online. So
really?
yeah, yeah. But also all my friends growing up, they didn't call me Melina, they called me Mel or Melly Mel. So that's
Oh,
yeah. So
very
you
cool.
break dance and I'll do my one rap that I have one of these days. Yes.
Yeah, well, you know what? Hey, after watching the Olympics, I believe I got a shot. After watching that Australian lady, I said, I
Yeah,
think I need to pull out my
yeah.
breakdancing shoes.
You're
All
a
right,
contender. You
you
can
know,
beat Ray
hey,
Gun. Uh-huh.
that's right. You got to dare to dream. Well, I want to say thank you so much again, Dr. Abdullah, for coming through. You're welcome here in this space anytime you want, and I'm just here to support what you all are doing. And please give my best to Dr. West. And if he wants to stop by, he can stop by as well. Just so you know, just know there's some people here that's going to ask him about his wives and why he didn't marry black women. But I'm not going to bring that up because I'm not even trying to even dig into that. I don't dig into who people marry and why. But there are people in here that are asking that question. I want to acknowledge you, but just so
Yeah.
y'all know, we ain't Dr. Abdul is here to talk about other stuff. We ain't here to speculate on who people marry and why. So
Right. Well, I choose to keep it black, but I feel like everybody has their own reasons for moving in the way that they do. But
yes.
I'm with you. It's all black everything, including partners up here. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
the greatest
Yeah.
investment I've ever made in my life is who I chose to spend my life with, and I'll tell you where it came from for me. When I was 16 years old, I heard my mother talking about how tough it was for some of her friends to find a husband, and I think out of obligation to my mother, I said to myself, if I get married, I'm definitely gonna marry me a black woman.
That's
I just almost like, okay, I'm here, and the thing is I don't try to push that on other people, because love is complicated, people do what they're gonna do. But I do think that it does say something about the depth of the commitment, honestly. It doesn't but it's hard to talk about it without criticizing. I don't want to criticize anybody, but it does say like, hey, you deserve some extra credit if you're like, hey, I'm gonna keep it black as much as possible. That to me may not it's not saying anything negative about other people, but it does say something I think positive about you. Because that's a tremendous investment that you're making. And then also one thing that I find is interesting as well is I get taken aback when I hear people like say like Candace Owens speak extensively on the state of the black family when you never created one. you've never
Right.
been a part of a Black family in that way. Or even a man who isn't married at all, saying all these things about Black women and Black marriage and all that. It's like, no, no, I want to talk to the people who have experience with it, who fought through it. I think there's so much trauma in our families that, that I think Black marriage can be complex and difficult. And I want to learn from the people who figured it out. And it's hard. It's really hard.
You
So
should have my
anyway,
mother on here because my mama and my baba, that's couple goals, right?
yes.
When you can
How
be
long
in
your
your
parents been married?
70s. So my baba is not my biological father. He came in when I was 16, but he's my father in every sense. He's
Wow.
he's my father in every sense. And so I guess 15 or 16, my baba came in. So that's almost 40 years. Well, I'm 51, so I'm not a math
Wow.
professor either. Um,
35.
35 years, right, that
Wow.
they've been together. But what I love is you get to see all of the complexities of it. So, my mom, who's in her 70s, gets life from laughing at from going, "Oh my God," right? And laugh, you know,
Yes.
and he gets like, my baba heard my mom calling him, right? He did. You heard her, but he's mastered the art of pretending like he didn't.
Oh my God, that is great. Yeah, I love the fact that you're talking about that because my parents this year in October next month they will hit 50 years, right?
Oh,
50
wow.
1974. And my father, similar to yours, he's not my biological father, but he's my father, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And it's and I just wish everybody could see, that having a marriage and building an institution like that that's that solid, it's not a fairy tale. It's not a picnic. It's not, like you have to have a lot of I've seen my parents be very flexible with each other in a lot of different ways because they just have this fundamental, very simple commitment that look, I'm doing this. This is where I'm at. My father, I think I asked my dad, I said, so what's the secret to staying married 50 years? And he said, I didn't get a divorce. Right. And my mother's just like, no, that's my man, that's my husband, period. I've never thought about anything other than that. And while that might seem overly simplistic in today's society because we got all these complex things going on that we're told to consider, sometimes you can keep it simple and just say, this is what I'm going to do. Like I told my wife, I said, if you ever leave me, just know I'm going with you. Just if you tell me I'm leaving, I'm gonna be like, well, where are we going? We're going on a trip. Like that's just what I saw growing up, right? And I don't know how that fits in today's society, but I think that there's something to simplicity as well, in terms of choosing what outcome you want in your life, right? So shout out to your parents. Give them my best.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. They're a
So
blessing in every way. Yeah.
yes, they are. Yes, they are. And
Yes.
you're a blessing as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Melina Abdullah. Everybody go follow her. Give me a yes in the chat if you're going to go follow and look up Doc Melly Mel on Instagram. Everybody go follow her. Comment in the chat. Let her know that you came from this space because people that are in these battles, they need cheerleaders. And we're not just talkers, we're doers. So everybody go follow Doc Melly Mel and give her support. And also if you feel inclined to support and donate to the campaign, feel free to do that as well. And I want to say thank you again. And God bless you, everybody. And we'll see you guys soon. Take care now. Thanks a lot again, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you.